when I realized our family dinner was nothing but a trap to make me give up my dreams. I thought I had lost everything. But then I discovered something none of them expected: a buried clause that could topple the shallow empire they'd built on my back. My name is Emma Quinn, and until 6 months ago, I believed family meant everything. I was the daughter who stayed close to home, who worked 2 jobs not for glory, but for purpose. By day, I taught coding to kids in underserved communities through a nonprofit program. By night, I worked tech support, helping frustrated customers reset passwords and troubleshoot software glitches. Neither job paid well, but they kept me afloat while I saved for something bigger. My younger sister Alyssa lived in a different universe. At 24, she commanded an Instagram following of 300,000. Each post a carefully curated glimpse into what she called her authentic lifestyle. Designer bags appeared on her arm like seasonal accessories. Her face transformed subtly every few months, though she swore it was just good skincare and genetics. Our parents, Richard and Monica Quinn, orbited around her like planets around the sun, basking in her reflected social media glory. The trust fund our grandparents left me was supposed to be my safety net, my launching pad. Grandma Morrison had pulled me aside at my high school graduation, her weathered hands gripping mine. "This money isn't for fancy cars or designer clothes, Emma. It's for when you're ready to build something that matters." She passed away 2 years later, but her words stayed with me. The fund would unlock when I turned 25, or earlier if I presented a solid business plan that aligned with what she called the Morrison values of community service and innovation. For 2 years, I'd been developing that plan. The Morrison Community Tech Hub would offer free coding classes, computer literacy training, and tech support to kids and seniors in our community. I'd run pilot programs using borrowed space at the library, watching 8-year-olds' faces light up when they made their first program work, seeing 70-year-olds video call grandchildren for the first time. Every success story went into my business plan. Every lesson learned refined my approach. The Sunday dinner that changed everything started like any other. Mom had made her famous pot roast. The dining room smelled like rosemary and red wine, and Alyssa was late because she needed perfect lighting for her stories. I'd brought my business plan in a leather portfolio, my hands trembling with excitement as I set it beside my plate. Before we eat, I announced when Alyssa finally arrived, phone still in hand. "I have something to share." Dad barely looked up from carving the roast. "Can it wait until after dinner?" "It's about the trust fund. I'm ready to present my business plan." The silence that followed felt different from normal family quiet. Mom's fork hovered halfway to her mouth. Alyssa's phone screen went dark. Dad set down the carving knife with deliberate precision. "Emma." Mom's voice carried that particular tone she used when denying me something for my own good. "This isn't the right time to discuss finances." "When is the right time? I've been preparing for 2 years. The community center has already expressed interest in partnering with us. I have letters of support from 3 schools, and the fund is complicated right now." Dad's interruption was sharp, final. "Market volatility, regulatory issues. These things take time to sort out." "What kind of regulatory issues?" I pressed. "Grandma's lawyer said everything was straightforward. I just need to present my plan to the trustees, which is you and Mom. And I said it's complicated." His face flushed the way it did when someone questioned his authority at work. "We're handling it. That's all you need to know." Alyssa shifted in her seat, suddenly fascinated by her manicure. The gesture was small, but I'd known my sister all her life. She was hiding something. How long before it's sorted out? I kept my voice steady, professional. "I have vendors ready to quote on equipment. The community center can only hold the space for another 60 days before they need to rent it out." "However long it takes," Mom said, her pot roast now forgotten. "Honestly, Emma, you act like this is life or death. It's just another one of your little projects." Little projects. That's what they called everything I did. The after-school tutoring was a little project. The senior center computer classes were a little project. Meanwhile, Alyssa's Instagram career was building an empire, and creating generational wealth through influence. It's not a little project, I said quietly. It's what Grandma wanted. It's what the money was meant for. Your grandmother isn't here. Dad's voice carried a warning. We are, and we decide what's best for this family's financial future. I opened my portfolio, desperate to make them see. If you'd just look at the projections. Enough. Dad's palm slammed the table, making the crystal glasses sing. The money isn't available. End of discussion. That's when Alyssa's phone buzzed. She grabbed for it, but not before I saw the notification preview. Payment confirmed $15,000. Studio package complete. My sister's eyes met mine for a fraction of a second before she shoved the phone into her purse. But I'd already seen too much. The studio package, the exact amount she'd mentioned last month for her new content creation space. I need some air, I managed, my voice barely steady. Outside, the October evening bit through my cardigan, but I barely felt it. I pulled out my phone and logged into the banking app I rarely checked, the one linked to notifications about the trust fund. I'd always assumed the alerts were routine maintenance, interest payments, standard financial noise. My hands shook as I scrolled through the transaction history. 3 months ago, $8,000 withdrawal. Educational expenses. 6 weeks ago, $12,000. Medical emergency. Last week, $15,000. Professional development. The numbers blurred as my eyes filled with tears. Not from sadness, from rage. I drove straight to Hazel Brennan's house. The former bank manager had been Grandma's bridge partner and one of the few people I trusted completely. She answered the door in her quilted robe, took one look at my face, and ushered me into her kitchen. They're stealing from me, I said without preamble. My parents. They're draining the trust fund. Hazel's weathered face didn't show surprise. She poured 2 cups of tea with steady hands, then sat across from me at her small kitchen table. I wondered when you'd come, she said quietly. Your grandmother worried this might happen. You knew. I suspected. When your parents switched financial advisors last year, moved the accounts to that new firm downtown. Very unusual for trust fund management to change hands without the beneficiary's knowledge. Can they do that legally? Hazel sipped her tea thoughtfully. Trust law is complex. As trustees, they have certain powers, but also fiduciary duties. The question is whether they're using those powers appropriately. They're using it to fund Alyssa's influencer lifestyle. I saw the notification. $15,000 for a studio package, charged today. The same day they told me the fund was complicated and unavailable. Do you have access to the full transaction history? I showed her my phone. Hazel pulled on her reading glasses and scrolled through months of withdrawals, her frown deepening with each entry. Educational expenses, she muttered. Medical emergencies, professional development, all legitimate categories under the trust terms, but the amounts and frequency. She looked up at me over her glasses. Emma, have you ever seen the original trust documents? Just the summary Mom showed me when I turned 18. Hazel stood and walked to an antique secretary desk in the corner of her kitchen. From a locked drawer, she pulled out a manila envelope. Your grandmother gave me this for safekeeping. She said if anything seemed wrong, I should make sure you saw it. I think that time has come. Inside was a copy of the full trust agreement, 40 pages of dense legal text. But Hazel had already marked the important sections with sticky notes. Look here. She pointed to a highlighted passage. The trustees can make withdrawals for the beneficiary's education, medical needs, and professional development. But, see this subsection? I read where her finger pointed, the legal language slowly resolving into meaning. All withdrawals must be directly related to the beneficiary's needs and documented with receipts and proof of use. And this part, Hazel flipped several pages forward. The reimbursement clause. My heart stopped. There it was, in black and white. Should trust funds be withdrawn for purposes not directly benefiting the named beneficiary? Or should funds be misappropriated through fraudulent categorization? The beneficiary maintains the right to demand full reimbursement of all improperly withdrawn funds, plus interest at the statutory rate. Failure to provide such reimbursement within 30 days of formal demand shall result in the right to place liens against the trustee's assets equivalent to the misappropriated amount. This is it, I whispered. This is what I need. You'll need more than just the clause, Hazel warned. You'll need proof that the withdrawals weren't for your benefit, documentation, evidence. I'll get it. Be careful, Emma. When money's involved, even family can turn vicious. I left Hazel's house with the trust documents and a plan forming in my mind. But first, I needed an ally who understood both technology and social media. I needed Georgia Chen. Georgia and I had been roommates in college before she dropped out to join a startup. Now she ran her own digital marketing firm and had the kind of insider knowledge about influencer culture that I desperately needed. I found her at her apartment, surrounded by 3 monitors and empty energy drink cans. Emma. She pushed aside a keyboard to hug me. What brings you to my cave of digital darkness? I explained everything. Georgia listened while simultaneously typing, her screens filling with Alyssa's social media profiles across multiple platforms. So, you need to prove that these educational expenses were actually funding her lifestyle. Georgia summarized, Lucky for you, your sister documents everything. It's her brand. For the next 4 hours, we worked like digital detectives. Georgia showed me how to correlate withdrawal dates with Alyssa's posts. The $8,000 educational expense from 3 months ago matched perfectly with her investing in my craft series, featuring new camera equipment and lighting rigs. The $12,000 medical emergency aligned with her self-care journey posts, complete with before and after photos from her cosmetic procedures. This is damning, Georgia said, creating a spreadsheet that matched each withdrawal to corresponding social media evidence. But you know what's even more interesting? Look at her engagement rates. She pulled up analytics tools I didn't know existed. Her follower count is 300,000, but her engagement is abysmal. See these spikes? Classic bot behavior. She's buying followers. Can you prove that? Give me a few days. I still have contacts from my influencer marketing days. If she's using the services I think she is, there will be receipts. Why would she need to buy followers if mom and dad are funding everything? Georgia gave me a pitying look. Because followers are currency in her world, real influence is hard to build. It's easier to buy the appearance of success and use that to get brand deals. It's fraud all the way down. I took the evidence home and spent the next day organizing it into a comprehensive file. Every withdrawal matched to a purchase, every emergency linked to a luxury. The pattern was undeniable. In 6 months, they drained nearly $103,000 from my trust fund. The lawyer Georgia recommended was named Marcus Thompson, a soft-spoken man who specialized in trust litigation. He reviewed my file in silence for 30 minutes while I sat anxiously in his office chair. This is one of the clearer cases of trustee breach I've seen, he finally said. The reimbursement clause is your ace. Most trusts don't have such specific language about misappropriation remedies. So I can get the money back. You can demand it. Whether they have it to give back is another question. But the lien provision gives you leverage. Their house, cars, other assets could all be subject to seizure if they don't comply. What's the first step? A formal demand letter. It needs to be precise, documented, and give them the full 30 days as specified in the trust. After that, if they don't comply, we file suit. Send it. The letter went out on a Tuesday. By Wednesday evening, my phone was exploding with calls from my parents. I didn't answer. On Thursday, they showed up at my apartment. How dare you? Mom spat the moment I opened the door. Threatening your own parents with lawyers. Have you lost your mind? Have you lost your integrity? I shot back. You stole from me, from Grandma's legacy. We managed the funds as we saw fit. Dad's corporate voice was in full effect. For the family's benefit. For Alyssa's benefit, I have the receipts. Every withdrawal, every purchase. It's all documented. You ungrateful, Mom started, but Dad held up a hand. What do you want, Emma? What I've always wanted. My trust fund. intact, to build the community center Grandma envisioned. You have 30 days to return the money. We don't have it. Mom's voice cracked. It's invested in Alyssa's career. Her influence is worth millions, potentially. Her influence is built on lies and my stolen inheritance. 30 days. I closed the door on their shocked faces. The next morning, I woke to my phone buzzing with notifications. Hundreds of them. Alyssa had posted a video. Through tears and dramatic pauses, she told her followers how her jealous sister was trying to destroy their family, how I was money-obsessed and cruel, attacking our parents with lawyers over a misunderstanding. The video had 50,000 views in 3 hours. The comments were brutal. My Instagram, dormant for months, filled with hate messages. Someone found my LinkedIn and started contacting my employers. By noon, I'd received death threats. This is insane, I told Georgia over the phone. They're trying to destroy my life. No, Georgia corrected. They're showing their hand. Alyssa just admitted on video that there's a legal dispute. She's given us more evidence, but we need to act fast before this spirals further. What do you suggest? We fight fire with fire, but with truth instead of tears. Georgia helped me craft a response, not a video I wasn't going to play Alyssa's game. Instead, we created a simple website, The Truth About the Quinn Family Trust. Clean, factual, devastating. We posted the timeline, every withdrawal, every corresponding purchase. The spreadsheet showing how medical emergencies became lip fillers and educational expenses became ring lights. We included excerpts from the trust documents, highlighting Grandma Morrison's intent for the money to serve the community. Are you sure about this? I asked before we went live. They went public first. Georgia reminded me, you're just providing facts. The website exploded. Reddit picked it up first, then Twitter. Someone cross-posted to TikTok with commentary. Within 48 hours, Alyssa's carefully curated image was crumbling. But the real bombshell came from Georgia's research into the bot followers. She'd found more than just evidence of purchased engagement. She'd found evidence of systematic fraud against brands. Alyssa's been double-dipping, Georgia explained, showing me contracts she'd obtained through her network. She tells brands she has 300,000 engaged followers, charges premium rates, then delivers campaigns to an audience that's 70% bots. That's wire fraud. How did you get these contracts? Let's just say not everyone in the influencer world is a fan of fake engagement. Some brands are very interested in this information. Within a week, 3 major brands had terminated their contracts with Alyssa. 2 more demanded refunds for previous campaigns. The house of cards was collapsing. That's when my parents made their next move. I was served with a countersuit alleging defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and, bizarrely, theft of intellectual property. They claimed I'd stolen confidential family financial information and published it maliciously. Marcus Thompson laughed when he read it. This is what we call a SLAP suit, strategic lawsuit against public participation. They're trying to bury you in legal fees. Can they do that? They can try. But remember that sealed box Hazel mentioned? I think it's time we found out what else your grandmother left for safekeeping. The sealed box was in a safety deposit box at a bank across town. Hazel had the key. And as the beneficiary, I had access rights. Inside, we found everything. Letters from my grandmother, detailing her concerns about my parents' financial habits. Records showing that they'd pressured her to change the trust terms in Alyssa's favor, which she'd refused. And most damning evidence that they'd tried to contest the will after her death, claiming she wasn't of sound mind. But the real treasure was a smaller envelope marked for Emma's legal battles. Inside was documentation for a separate legal expense fund, one my parents didn't know existed, worth $50,000. Your grandmother was a chess player, Marcus said admiringly. She anticipated every move. Armed with the legal fund, we went on the offensive. We filed our formal suit, not just for reimbursement, but for breach of fiduciary duty, fraud, and conversion. We subpoenaed financial records, communications, everything. The discovery process was revealing. My parents had been living beyond their means for years, using the trust as their personal piggy bank while maintaining a facade of upper-middle-class success. They justified it by telling themselves they were investing in the family's future through Alyssa's career. Alyssa's records were even worse. The influencer lifestyle had become an addiction. $1,000 skincare routines. Designer clothes worn once for photos, then sold. Cosmetic procedures every few months. She was burning through money faster than she could fake earning it. The trial date was set for 3 months out, but the court of public opinion moved faster. The story had evolved beyond family drama into a cautionary tale about influencer fraud and parental exploitation. Major publications picked it up. Alyssa lost another 100,000 followers as people realized how much of her lifestyle was built on lies. 2 weeks before trial, my parents blinked. Their lawyer reached out to Marcus about a settlement. They'd repay the money in installments over 5 years, with interest. No, I said firmly. 30 days, as the trust specifies, full amount. They claim they don't have it. Marcus relayed. Then they can liquidate assets, sell the house, sell the cars, sell Alyssa's equipment. I don't care. Grandma's money goes to its intended purpose. The negotiations dragged on for days. Meanwhile, Alyssa tried one last manipulation. She posted a suicide-baiting message on Instagram, claiming the harassment had driven her to the edge. Within hours, she was involuntarily hospitalized for evaluation when someone reported the post. At the hospital, I found my parents in the waiting room, looking older than I'd ever seen them. "Are you happy now?" Mom asked, her voice hollow. "You've destroyed everything." "I didn't destroy anything," I said quietly. "I just stopped letting you steal from me." Dad looked up. His corporate armor finally cracked. "It wasn't supposed to go this far. We just needed a little to help Alyssa get established. Then she'd pay it back from her earnings." "But the earnings never came," I said, "because it was all fake. The followers, the engagement, the lifestyle, all of it built on my inheritance." "She's our daughter, too," Mom whispered. "We wanted her to succeed. At my expense, at the expense of every kid who won't get to learn coding because you decided ring lights were more important than computer labs." Alyssa was released after 72 hours. The evaluation found no immediate danger, just a manipulative gesture gone too far. But something had changed in her. The first time we spoke after her release, she couldn't meet my eyes. "I'm sorry," she said, the words seemingly torn from her throat. "I knew it was wrong. Every withdrawal, every purchase, I knew." "Then why?" She laughed bitterly. "Because I believed my own hype. Do you know how addictive it is? The likes, the comments, the brands courting you. I thought if I could just get big enough, I'd pay it all back with interest. I'd be the success story that justified everything. But it was never real." "No," she admitted, "it was never real." The settlement came the day before trial. Faced with the evidence we'd accumulated and the public humiliation of a trial, my parents agreed to liquidate assets. The house they'd lived in for 20 years went on the market. Dad's beloved vintage car collection was auctioned. Mom's jewelry, much of it inherited from her own mother, was appraised and sold. It took exactly 30 days from the settlement agreement to receive the full amount, $150,000 plus interest and legal fees. The check felt surreal in my hands. Marcus had handled the lien filings perfectly. Every asset was accounted for, every dollar tracked. My parents were left with enough to rent a modest apartment and maintain basic necessities. But the lifestyle they'd grown accustomed to was gone. Alyssa moved back in with them, her influencer career in ruins. The brand lawsuits continued, seeking repayment for fraudulent campaigns. She eventually filed for bankruptcy, listing debts that exceeded any amount she'd ever legitimately earned. I used the money exactly as I'd planned. The Morrison Community Tech Hub opened 6 months later in a converted storefront downtown. The space wasn't fancy, no ring lights or designer furniture, but it had everything that mattered. 30 computers donated by local businesses and refurbished by volunteers. A teaching lab with projectors and whiteboards. A quiet room for senior citizens learning to video chat with grandchildren. The grand opening was small. No influencers, no social media blast. Just the community members who'd written letters of support, the kids from my pilot programs, and Hazel, who cut the ribbon with tears in her eyes. "Your grandmother would be so proud," she whispered. 3 people notably absent were my parents and Alyssa. We hadn't spoken since the settlement finalized. I'd heard through mutual acquaintances that Dad had taken a lower-paying job, that Mom worked part-time at a department store, that Alyssa was attending community college for accounting, starting over at square one. I thought I'd feel satisfaction at their downfall. Instead, I felt empty. The money was recovered, the center was built, justice was served, but I'd lost my family in the process. That changed the day Alyssa walked into the center. I was teaching a basic coding class to middle schoolers when I saw her through the window. She stood outside for 10 minutes before gathering courage to enter. "Can we talk?" she asked when the class ended. We sat in the small office I'd claimed as mine, surrounded by student artwork and thank you notes from parents. "I'm not here to ask for forgiveness," she started. "I know I don't deserve that. I'm here because..." She pulled out a folder. "I've been documenting everything, every fake follower service, every brand I defrauded, every penny I stole. I want to help other people avoid what I became." "Why?" "Because I can't undo what I did to you, but maybe I can stop someone else from destroying their family for likes and follows." She'd written a comprehensive guide to identifying influencer fraud, complete with screenshots, contracts, and confessions. It was thorough, honest, and damning. "What do you want me to do with this?" "Whatever you think is right. Post it, burn it, use it for education. I don't care. I just needed someone to know I understand what I did." After she left, I sat with her folder for hours. The girl who'd documented every moment of her fake life had finally documented the truth. It wasn't redemption, but it was a start. I published her guide on the center's website under the title, "The Real Cost of Fake Influence: A Sister's Confession." It went viral in a different way than her previous content. Parents shared it with teenagers dreaming of influencer fame. Marketing professionals used it in presentations about due diligence. Schools incorporated it into digital literacy curricula. Alyssa never asked for credit or tried to capitalize on the attention. She quietly finished her accounting degree, got a job at a small firm, and began the long process of rebuilding a life based on substance rather than surface. My parents remained bitter for months. Mom sent angry emails about how I'd destroyed their retirement, their dreams, their standing in the community. Dad left voicemails about family loyalty and forgiveness that I deleted without listening to the end. But time has a way of wearing down even the sharpest edges. A year after the center opened, I received a different kind of email from Mom. No accusations, no guilt trips, just a single line. "I saw the news story about your students winning the state coding competition. Grandma would have been proud." I didn't respond, but I didn't delete it either. The Morrison Community Tech Hub thrived beyond my wildest dreams. What started with 30 computers and a handful of volunteers grew into a movement. Local businesses sponsored equipment upgrades. Retired engineers volunteered as mentors. High school students who'd learned coding with us came back to teach younger kids. On the 2-year anniversary of our opening, we held a celebration. The mayor came to speak about the center's impact on the community. 3 of our students had received full scholarships to study computer science. A dozen seniors were now video chatting with grandchildren overseas. A group of middle schoolers had created an app to help food banks track donations. During the celebration, I stood in front of the plaque bearing my grandmother's name and the mission statement she'd inspired. "Technology is not about the tools we use, but the connections we build and the communities we strengthen." Someone cleared their throat behind me. I turned to find my parents, looking uncomfortable but determined. "We won't stay long," Dad said quickly. "We just wanted to see what you built." They walked through the center slowly, taking in the students at computers, the walls covered with success stories, the energy of learning and growth. Mom stopped at a display showing before and after photos of students' lives changed through technology education. "It's remarkable," she said softly. All of this from Grandma's vision, I finished, and the money you tried to steal. She flinched but didn't argue. We were wrong, not just legally, but morally. We let ourselves believe that Alyssa's success would benefit everyone eventually. We were blinded by the promise of easy money and internet fame. And now we live with the consequences. Dad said, we work regular jobs. We rent a small apartment. We budget carefully. We live the life we should have been living all along, without the false inflation of stolen money. I'm not going to forgive you, I said clearly. Not yet. Maybe not ever. You didn't just steal money. You stole trust. You chose favorites. You dismissed my dreams while funding Alyssa's delusions. We know, Mom whispered. We don't expect forgiveness. We just wanted you to know that we see it now. What this place means, what you've accomplished, what Mom really wanted. They left soon after, but not before quietly dropping a check in the donation box. Not a large amount, they didn't have that anymore, but enough to show effort. The center continued to grow. We opened a second location on the other side of town, then a third in a rural area where internet access was limited. Each site bore my grandmother's name and mission. Each one filled with students eager to learn, seniors determined to connect, and communities strengthening through technology. I never rebuilt the close relationship with my family that we'd once had. The betrayal cut too deep, the scars too permanent. But we found a distant peace. Holiday cards exchanged, occasional emails about the center's achievements, polite conversations at mutual family events. Alyssa occasionally sent updates about her work helping businesses identify and avoid influencer fraud. She'd become something of an expert, consulting for major brands and speaking at marketing conferences. She never returned to social media personally, having learned the hard way that authentic life happens offline. 5 years after that fateful family dinner, I stood in the newest Morrison Community Tech Hub location, watching a group of elementary students squeal with delight as their robots responded to their code. In the corner, a grandmother learned to use translation software to speak with her daughter-in-law in Korea. At another station, teenagers built websites for local small businesses. My phone buzzed with a text from Hazel. Your grandmother would say you didn't just save the money, you saved her legacy. I thought about the trust fund, about the buried clause that changed everything, about the family I'd lost and the community I'd gained. Sometimes the price of justice is higher than we expect to pay. Sometimes doing right means standing alone. But as I watched those kids' faces light up with discovery, I knew every battle had been worth it. The money was never just about dollars and cents. It was about trust. The trust my grandmother placed in me, the trust I'd built with the community, and the trust these students placed in their own potential. The real inheritance wasn't the $150,000. It was the understanding that some things are worth fighting for, even when the fight costs everything. It was learning that family isn't always about blood, but about who shows up, who builds up, and who refuses to let dreams die for the sake of someone else's illusion. The Morrison Community Tech Hub stands as more than a building or a program. It's proof that one person with conviction can stand against corruption, even when that corruption wears familiar faces. It's evidence that buried clauses and hidden truths have a way of surfacing when someone cares enough to dig. And it's a reminder that the best revenge isn't destruction. It's building something beautiful from the ashes of betrayal. Every day, when I unlock the center's doors and welcome in students eager to learn, I think about that family dinner where everything started. The pot roast grew cold while my parents protected their deception. The trust shattered like those singing crystal glasses. But from those shards, we built something stronger. Not a family reunion wrapped in forgiveness and forgetting, but a community united by purpose and possibility. The trust fund that was meant to silence my dreams instead amplified them across 3 locations and thousands of changed lives. And somewhere, I believe my grandmother is watching, satisfied that her granddaughter found the buried clause that saved not just money, but a legacy worth leaving.